May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so it only makes sense that we cover this story. A New York grand jury declined to press charges against Rochester police officers involved in the murder of Daniel Prude. Joe Prude, Daniel Prude's brother, called 911 for medically necessary help for his mentally ill brother. What happened next is what he couldn't have imagined. There were 3 officers. They held down Daniel Prude in the street, naked, and handcuffed him until he died. This is absolutely unacceptable, but it happens all the time where untrained officers are called out to the scene somewhere, and really when someone's just needing assistance, they end up dead. The officers knew going into it what the situation was. There was no excuse for them to come in, guns blazing and drawn like they were coming into a gang-related shooting or maybe a robbery is sort of how they reacted. Something like this is just unacceptable. And the fact is that everyone needs training, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you work at a factory, lawyers, everyone needs additional training in order for them to serve or better serve the communities that they are serving. That's just something that you can't deny. Now, it doesn't really make sense to me why the police departments sort of have some backlash, or they're not necessarily all on board for having this additional training. They'd rather buy artillery, brand new guns, and sort of just go out in the field with their guns rather than their training. Daniel Prude died of excited delirium. This term was basically coined in 1980s. Police use it mostly as an excuse. It's not a real mental health disorder or a medical term, actually. It's just something that police officers use in order to justify the death of a lot of Black people while they are in police custody. #We also calls for an end to privileged immunity. Police officers should be held to the same standard, if not a higher standard, than civilians when it comes to murder. A regular civilian wouldn't get away with shooting and killing someone that's unarmed, and neither should police officers. Although this is just a piece of the puzzle, it's a step in the right direction when it comes to ending police brutality. Colorado recently set the right example when they created the Support Assistance Team. This team is actually dispatched out in situations where an armed officer is not appropriate. Since June, whenever this program started, they have gone out to over 350 calls, and none of them ended in violence, none of them ended in death. This is something that #We applauds. We think that all states should create initiatives such as this. You just don't send out armed forces whenever someone's jaywalking, or if someone runs a red light. You're not going to send out the militia for something like that, right? You're going to send out trained professionals. So #We definitely applauds Colorado for their initiatives in this.
I want to spend a few minutes talking about this year's Grammy Awards. Now, traditionally in the past, females have not had a significant representation at the awards show, but not the case for this year. And we are going to start by celebrating Queen Bee herself, our girl from Texas, Beyoncé. She became the first artist ever, male or female, regardless of music genre, to win a lifetime 28 Grammy Awards. Let that sink in, 28. And she's nowhere near retirement. Kudos to Beyoncé for such an incredible accomplishment. Other winners of note include Billie Eilish for taking home Record of the Year, Megan Thee Stallion for winning Best New Artist, and she was the first female rapper since 1999. Were y'all even born yet? Do you remember who it was? Miss Lauryn Hill took that honor in 1999. We also want to celebrate Miss Taylor Swift for becoming the first female artist ever to win Album of the Year 3 times. I actually found that a little bit surprising given the amount of talent that's come through the decades, but kudos to Taylor Swift for such an outstanding achievement. And finally, we want to give a shout out to the very talented artist, Her, for taking home Song of the Year with her 2020 protest hit, I Can't Breathe. Now, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the controversial element that everyone's been talking about, the performance of Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion for WAP, which is too graphic for me to explain what that is on camera, and I actually didn't even know it was pronounced WAP until a few days ago, so there you go. We, as a network, denounce this performance as not being empowering for females. We found it shocking and sexually explicit and did not think that it contributed to the empowerment of females anywhere. We, as a network, celebrate Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion for their accomplishments. However, we were shocked that this performance was allowed to air. We are going to shift now to a story about cancel culture that comes to us from Birmingham, Alabama. It appears that senior pastor Chris Hodges, leader of the Church of the Highlands, a 60,000-member congregation in 24 locations, has been blasted for his social media activity. It seems that he's been liking social media posts from Charlie Kirk, a controversial pro-Trump activist who has displayed racially insensitive posts, and it appears that Hodges seemingly liked these posts. Now, it kind of reminds me of when you get mad at your boyfriend for liking the other girl's posts, and maybe they're saying, I was innocent, I just liked the post. Who knows? Regardless, Birmingham community members and authorities did not take this action lightly. In fact, the Birmingham Board of Education revoked 2 leases to the church where they were previously allowed to gather in high schools to hold services. As well, housing authorities promptly ended their partnership with their church that was previously providing services to the community. This brings about an interesting twist for the evangelical community, one who has infamously participated in cancel culture since the 1960s when Christian conservatism was on a sharp decline. We have countless instances throughout the decades where they boycotted companies, blasted groups and individuals for not having the same beliefs and opinions. They burned books, they denounced music and artists and all sorts of activities that related to cancel culture throughout the decades. It's an interesting twist that what goes around now comes around for the evangelical community. They even went so far to boycott companies like the Walt Disney Company and JCPenney for being too tolerant of the gay community. Now, my opinion is whatever energy you put out in the universe, it's going to come back to you. So that if that includes denouncing, blaming, shaming, it's probably going to come back to you at some point. And like I said, a story of what goes around comes around.